Hey, Energy Matters listeners, welcome back to another episode. It has been a minute, but Cody and I are coming to you from where we were coming to you from before this whole pandemic started, from our rooms. So not that much has changed with us.
From our basements, yeah.
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 Cody's in his mom's basement, and I am in mine.
David's in his mom's, and we were self-isolating and distancing all along.
I've been self-isolating my entire life. So we wanted to do a special episode today, talk about what's happening in the world, how to manage it on an energetic level, how to use meditation to keep yourself grounded and calm and creative and not just freak out and match all the fear or anxiety in the world, and maybe even have a good time while this is happening, and how to use isolation to help yourself find some solitude or maybe go from feeling lonely to feeling solitude. And there's a difference, and we could talk about that. So there's been a lot going on since our last episode. It took us a minute to record, but it's good to be back with you, Cody.
Yeah, likewise. It did take us a minute. Although that, as you say, we've been gone a quick minute. It's kind of the longest, shortest time.
Yeah, it feels like
You
it.
know, it's like things are melding together, and day after day, it's like, what day is it? And then things are dragging on at certain points. But it is a great time to meditate. And I think, of course, we've both been pretty busy with uh, doing extra meditating, not ourselves, but teaching and doing extra meditations for people on getting through the energy and kind of surviving this social upheaval as everything's turned upside down. But for the most part, I think we're doing pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we have a beautiful intuitive training group that we started a month ago with. They're
Yeah.
coming along nicely, baking in the oven.
That's right.
Their third eyes slowly
Their
baking.
third eyes opening up. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's been really exciting, actually. With so much change going on, all of the various tools that we teach are really hitting home, and I think have a deeper meaning when we're confronted with so much change and adversity and just up and down. So it's been a really great group.
Yeah. And it has lovely group. Really going to enjoy watching them flower over the next 7 years because that's how long their training is. Don't tell them. So let's start with a couple of jokes for this special moment in history. I got a few good quarantine jokes.
You do.
Yes. All right. Well, you've got a couple too. I'll
I
start.
just saw one. Oh no,
All
I'll
right.
start. I just saw one, which
Go.
was just a personal ad for the day, which is man with toilet paper seeking woman with hand sanitizers for some good clean fun.
That's good. I like that. uh, all right. I got one. Let's see. I struck up a conversation with a spider today. Seems nice. He's a web designer.
Okay, that is almost like a dad joke right there. That is so corny. I'm a dad,
Uh,
so I should have all the dad jokes.
you totally should. Uh, strawberry, day 3, strawberries. Some have 210 seeds, some have 235 seeds. Who knew?
Oh, that's funny. I saw a number of those early on about rice.
About rice.
I'm not bored, but I am curious as to why one bag of rice. Yes, that's funny. It is good that people are able to find a little amusement here and there. I saw a funny little clip the other day. Someone had written up of a mom seeing her daughter outside playing, saying, "What are you doing outside playing? You're supposed to be in class." And she said, "Oh, Mom, I just took a screenshot of myself and posted it in my Zoom profile, and the teacher will never know.
That's a
There's
good
30
idea.
kids." And then it says she's only 10.
All right, I got one on homeschooling. Day 6 of homeschooling. My child just said, "I hope I don't have the same teacher next year."
That's a good one.
Or let's see, day homeschooling day 7. One of these little monsters just called in a bomb threat. uh,
Oh,
and then, all right, last one. I shared this in the meditation I taught earlier today. My body has absorbed so much soap and disinfectant lately that when I pee, it cleans the toilet. That's a
that
good.
is a good one.
All
Oh
right.
goodness.
Well, here we are. I know there's a lot of serious stuff going on the planet. We just wanted to light up the mood a little bit before we dive into everything. And it has been an intense time. There's a lot of suffering for sure. The first pandemic, I guess, the Earth has seen since 1918, I believe,
I think that was the real last big one. Yeah,
which
1918.
is kind of interesting because World War One, I think, started 19. I don't know if it started 1917,
16.
16. It was the same
Yeah.
time, and that's how a lot of it was passing soldier to soldier.
A lot
Fascinating.
of travel, world travel then. Yeah.
One of the things that I've noticed, so the that pandemic, I'm sure had a massive effect on the war, and this one, I'm noticing it's having an effect on slowing down environmental degradation. So I live in LA. It's the first time I've ever lived here where you can like see the stars somewhat. There's less pollution. You can see the mountain
Interesting.
ranges further away. It's the first time in 30 years that you can see the Himalayan mountains from New Delhi. There's dolphins swimming in the canals in Venice. And the other day I heard somebody saying that they were seeing bobcats in their backyard in LA for the first time in a very long time. In South Africa, there were tigers laying on the roads
I
because
saw
there's no
that.
cars. Uh, so there are
Wildlife
some
creeping back in.
so quickly
Yes.
as we slow down for a moment. So putting the sickness aside for a moment, and just looking at like, wow, humanity is taking a forced break for the first time in 100 years. I don't know. I don't know if they took a break then. I'm not sure. It's kind of,
Somewhat.
yeah. It's what I find really fascinating is that everyone's like, we got to get back to work. And then they're going to go back to work and be like, I would have loved to have been home for longer. Like, no, I get the financial part of it, right? If you have to
Right.
pay the bills and buy food, of course, of course. But it's like we are searching for time and space. Please give me some space, and then we get it because it's not under the circumstances that we want on like a beach chair in Hawaii or something, that we're in resistance to it, and then we don't
Yeah.
use the time wisely.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to have it and accept it and just relax into it when it feels forced. It's kind of funny. I've spoken with a couple of people who said, like retired people who said, well, I'm retired and I really don't do that much. But now that I can't go out, I want to go out more,
Yeah,
right? We suddenly feel caged a little bit, or we feel a little bit out of control in many ways.
I've
But
noticed
you're
how little my life has changed actually.
right. That was what I noticed, that because I work from home, right? And I do a lot of teaching, everything's online, and a lot of counseling online and all kinds of stuff. And my personal joke has been, boy, when this is over, I got to get out more because this doesn't feel any different.
Yeah, I've noticed I don't get out nearly enough and I
Yeah.
don't take advantage of Southern California enough.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, but I understand many people, it's an entire shift from the normal pace of life. And it's not like my routines haven't been broken up, and my daughter had to come home from college, and everything's very different right now. I think the thing that stands out to me about it, when David, when you were talking just about the environmental thing And then, of course, we have the social distancing, and we have this greater awareness of our own spaces. It's really, not only are we kind of having to slow down and stop, but it's a great time to really look at our relationship to everything, whether it's the environment and the world, and just those examples of wildlife coming back in. There's a relationship we have to the natural world that for so long, for us as developing humans, we've been pushing the natural world back and farther away, and getting space from it as a way to maybe survive it or control it. But now it seems like we're at a point in time where we need to rebalance that relationship and redefine how we relate to the natural world, and also our relationship to each other. I've just noticed such a heightened awareness of that, and such a different feeling as I interact with people, and depending on what they're going through, a lot more awareness and concern about how other people are doing, whether it's our older, my parents and people like that, or I have a great psychic friend who works at Whole Foods, and I've been really kind of concerned about him and talking to him as much as possible. Um, it's just that, to me, that's the thing that stands out, is this question of not only where am I, but how am I relating to this world, and how might I want that to be different as we come out of this.
Yeah, there's an app called Nextdoor that I use, or
Mhm.
Neighborhood. Now I'm not sure. I have to look it up here on my phone. And it's really, really good because it tells you exactly what's going on in your particular neighborhood. If there's a robbery or there's a road closure, but then people post like, hey, so and so needs help getting groceries, or this person doesn't have money. And you can go around and just help your neighbors in your whatever 1 or few mile vicinity of your house. uh, I heard a loud bang in my
That's
neighborhood the
awesome.
other day, and I went on and people were talking about what it was. And it turned out to be the cops blowing something up because they didn't know
Oh,
what the object was.
oh, interesting.
Yeah. And,
Wow.
and so if you don't have that app, I just gave you two different names for it. It's called Nextdoor. Neither was right. Or did I say that? I'm not
You
sure.
said next door, I
Oh,
think, the
next
second
door.
time. Yeah.
And I really like it. That one's been good. So if
A
you've
way
been,
to help connect neighbor wise.
yeah, if you've been super
Yeah.
isolated, check in on that app. Unless you live in the country and there's nobody for 30 miles, I don't
Yeah.
know if it'll do you any good.
Good. Yeah. And where we live, we have a lot of greenways to walk and things. So people are out walking and keeping distance and wearing masks and what have you. But also, aware of each other, waving, saying hi. There's a lot more kind of interaction and acknowledgement of each other, even at a distance. So there's this greater kind of awareness and closeness, even at a distance, than normal. It's pretty amazing. We were walking by a lady's house. She just happened to be out checking the mail, and we said hi to her, and she was an older lady, and she says, I've lived here like 20 years, and I've seen more people walk by in the last 2 weeks than in the whole time I've lived here.
Yeah.
And it's like everybody has to get out and walk a little bit, but we're not interacting, in close proximity. I mean, you
I
can't. I don't know what it's like in LA there, like what
Yeah,
kind of a
same. And
space you have.
I had to drive to Santa Monica recently from where I live, and with traffic at on a Friday at 5 p.m., it could take well over an hour. And or in the morning, actually, it's the other way around. But it took me 15 or 18 minutes. It was like an insane record.
Wow,
And I have never seen the streets in LA so empty. Maybe they will never be this empty again. And there's
true.
something really nice about that. I was like, oh man, I could live here a little longer if
If it wasn't that
there are no
congested.
cars. Yeah. Luckily, I work from home and I walk everywhere. So I don't experience traffic almost ever. It's very rare for me. I live in a little
Yeah,
bubble kind of. But that was cool to experience that. And Southern California is gorgeous. There's so many hiking trails and places to go, just a few hours drive in any direction. So it's pretty cool. So we've got this pandemic happening. There's intensity on the planet. I think it's spread to over 170 countries. At the time of this recording, I think like 40,000 people just in America have died, and millions all over the world have it. It's sad to watch it get political, that like people have to fight about solutions. It's like, all right, you have one idea, they have another. Why don't we listen to smart people and try to come up
Try to
with
find the best one.
best
Yeah.
solutions so people don't die? And I don't get why it has to get so political. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
I guess everything kind of does.
Yeah. I guess at every level, people have their power or their control, and they're reluctant to give it up or let it change when something like this really forces a change
I think it
in
would
many
be,
ways. And it would be great
yeah.
if people could be more flexible and kind of shifting with the needs and kind of, but
If
yeah,
everyone just recognized that I was right
right.
and had the best plan.
You have a plan?
Yeah,
No.
we all wear Tickle Me Elmo suits, like full body, and we go outside and tickle each other at a distance, of course,
At a
but we're wearing
distance.
suits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is one of the things that I do find in the midst of all this, because it is just this ongoing thing, right? It's not like something, like an earthquake that just happens and then it's done and now we're on to the next thing. This is like a slow rolling issue that nobody knows how long it's really going to last. And some people are worried about whether things will get back to normal. I think it's fine that things are going to get back maybe to a new normal. But there was a pandemic in 1918, and it perhaps changed many things, but things did go back, to some semblance of everything being normal or recreated. It's
until
funny.
until World War II.
Right. Well, no, we had the Roaring Twenties, which maybe was
Until
part
the Great Depression.
or yeah, until the Great Depression. But what's funny to me about this, the memories that have come back to me, when in my youth, I got to have my grandfather come live with us when he was 89, 90.
Oh, during the first pandemic when you were a child.
No, yeah, not when I was a child. He lived through the first
And
pandemic, the 1918. And it kind of brought back a lot of memories that I don't really remember him talking a whole lot about the Great Depression, which he also lived through. And most old people I've known over my lifetime would have stories about the Great Depression. And I'm sure he had some, but I remember him speaking a lot about the pandemic. Like that was the thing that really shifted something for him. And I sure wish I was like 18, 19 at the time that he lived with us. I spent a lot of time with him. And now I'm wishing I had really like sat down and said, tell me, about some of these events, these world events. I just, of course, at that age, I didn't really have the wherewithal to do that. But the stories he would share were just about the impact of and the effect of having people, die basically, and just that it was pretty devastating in that time. I don't think we have something like that going on, partly perhaps because we have a little better understanding of what's happening and we have a lot of history to draw on. But
technology and supply
technology.
chains. We have a beautiful supply chain of toilet paper, seems to be continuing.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you took somebody from like the 1800s and you put them in your house or apartment and you said, listen, there's a pandemic, you have to stay here. Well, you can go out actually whenever you want. Just go to the supermarket, buy as much as you want, just put it on credit for now. No one's going to have to pay that back, right? And then just come home. And they're like, wait, you have running water anytime you move this thing over? Yeah.
Right.
And it's warm and I could drink it.
And there's food.
and there's endless amounts of food. I'm not really paying for it, or I am. I'm confused. And then I just sit here. It's like I don't think it's as bad as 1918
No.
for most people. Um, yeah,
In at least in the developed
in the
countries. Yeah,
developed world, obviously, yeah, in the
sure.
United States and Europe. In the third world, it's going to be way harder because they don't have the hospital bed capacity, and they don't have they everyone lives very close. So hopefully they're able to find a way to mitigate it, or we come up with some drugs that can slow it down or eventually cure it sooner than later. What I do
Yeah.
know is, I could be wrong, but eventually we will almost definitely find a cure. I forget if it was for SARS or MERS. It took them like 5 months to sequence it, and with this one, with the technology advances, it took us like 2 days to sequence
Right.
the virus. So we're making leaps and bounds on the technology front, and I wouldn't be surprised inside the next 18 months if they found a way to cure it. But if it's going to take that long, we're gonna be doing a lot of meditating.
Yeah. Right. But my point with the idea, the memories from my grandfather coming up is that, that was a defining moment in his life, and he lived to be like 93 or 4. And it was in his late 80s that he was, and into his 90s he was talking, and it's like we're living through one of those inflection points right now. We're living through history, and in a way we're creating it as we come out of it. And so that to me is the question. What do we want to create, and how do we want to kind of reset things or look at things differently when it's everything's kind of turned upside down? Is a great time to get a different perspective on everything.
Yeah,
And we raced to get back to normal, but for some of us maybe normal wasn't exactly the best. Maybe there's a new best we can imagine.
yeah,
uh,
absolutely. I think when we look out at the landscape, like in the media, uh, and in just a lot of areas of our culture, what we see, especially on TV, is like the least common denominator energy, which is
right.
like perpetual fear. Let me update you 32 times a day about how many people have died, what politician is doing what wrong, why you're not safe. It's like this perpetual fear just like
Right. We're
pumping out.
being sold that content all
Yeah,
the time.
if the news media didn't have to make money and it just did, it was not part of its equation, I wonder what it would look like. I think it would just be a lot more longer form and informative. And I think in all of these inflection points in history, there's always seems to be a battle between rationality, people who are reasonable and want peace, and people who are afraid and in like conspiracy theory energy, or just emotionally reacting, racism, tribalism. Like when my grandfather tells me about how he lived through World War II, and how
And
the
he
his
was he in Russia?
in
That he
Russia, in
Yeah.
Belarus,
Yes.
and how his neighbors, they were starting to say, people were starting to murmur the Germans are coming, and his neighbors were like, no, we don't have to worry about the Germans, it's the Polish, those are the ones we should
Mhm.
watch out for. And it was this, it's amazing how people process information and make decisions. Sometimes it's so emotional or tribal, and it's unreasonable. And I think when we're really reasonable, you realize that actually most people agree like 90% of the way about most things. And
Mhm.
then that 10% is usually there's not enough information, that we don't have enough information, or our values maybe are just a little different. But I think there's a lot more agreement than it seems when you look out at the media. Most people want to stay safe. They don't want anyone to die. They want the economy to be okay, but they also don't want to open it up prematurely and put people in jeopardy. I mean, everybody kind of agrees on all of that. And then the specifics is where it gets hard, because we live in a very complicated society. It's not that easy
Yeah.
to solve these problems.
Yeah, definitely. It is. I think that core kind of value system of taking care of people and having concern for our fellow human being, and I think most people certainly have that, and where it does get a little complicated is in how to achieve that and what the balance is, um, and I don't really have any answers about that kind of stuff.
You're not
That's why
an
I teach. That's why I teach
epidemiologist?
meditation. No, and I'm not a politician. So I tend to take the perspective of turning inward and kind of finding your own inner balance and approaching the world in integrity with that. And
You
yeah,
know, what I've noticed is that there's a lot of new meditation teachers and breathwork teachers and yoga teachers in the last few weeks online.
yeah.
on on social media and elsewhere. I've been getting solicited constantly too of new projects, people wanting me to be part of new projects, meditation projects of different kinds. People are just like super thirsty for some
Right,
some mental, emotional, spiritual help with this. And if you're listening to this, you might be a little guilty of overriding your feelings and your energy by just like binge watching stuff and avoiding. But I feel like after a while, you just kind of, if you're isolated long enough, you just, even that you give up. Like,
right.
all right, now what? All right, let's meditate. So if you've gotten to that point, good. It's a good thing. Yeah. So then the
Yeah,
question becomes, all right, I am isolated. I can't change the world. I can't fix it all by myself. What can I do from the inside
right.
out? And I think that's a very important question to be asking yourself, and finding meditation tools and growth tools that work for you. Everybody's a bit different, you know. And so if this show works for you, if you listen to Cody and I a lot, you're like, all right, guys, what do we do? What do you think we should do? I'll let Cody tell you.
Yeah, and I like your description of giving up. It's like, we have all these things that we can do to distract ourselves, and not that those aren't fun things. I mean, I certainly have uh, had my share of watching
You've watched your
Netflix and
Schitt's
different things.
Creek.
Yeah, watch the stuff, but there is that point where even that isn't enough, and for most people uh, that I've taught over the years of people that are like like seeking intuitive training or meditation tools, they've kind of reached that point in their life somehow anyway of going, well, all of this doesn't seem to be working, or it's not enough. What is that deeper answer? And I think as we're stuck, isolating, or stuck in so much uncertainty in a world that's so uncertain, that is one of the things that comes up pretty easily, is like, well, there's got to be a better answer. There's got to be something I can do to kind of reconnect and refine maybe that new path forward.
Yeah, I've been listening to Eckhart Tolle on isolation, on loneliness recently. Just wanted to see what wisdom he had to shine on it, which he has so much on every topic that he talks about. It was fascinating, though. I watched one clip where this young guy said, so Eckhart, I've been practicing nothing, doing nothing for a year and a half. It's like I went to India, now I'm following you around, and yeah, I've just kind of been doing nothing. And I was really surprised by Eckhart's response, which was, "You're not running out of money yet," which is what his first question. And the guy was just kind of like, no. And then Eckhart was like, and then it was really interesting. Eckhart kind of set him straight, because he said, when I sat up and did nothing for a long time, he sat on a park bench for a couple of years. He said, I didn't choose to do that, because it just happened. It was like I went through this
Mhm.
radical change, and then it just happened. but you can't force yourself into doing nothing. And then he kind of lightly guided the guy and said, "Are you in a relationship?" No. He said, "Well, maybe at some point doing nothing starts causing you pain and suffering so much that you're just lonely and not doing anything, and then so you get in a relationship, and then that starts causing you suffering and pain, and then you go back to being alone." And he goes, "So doing nothing or not doing nothing is not really the point. It's are you present in wherever you are?" And it's I love this part. This is my favorite part. He said, "We're human and being. Part of us sits in being, and then we also have to be human and do things. And you could do things with the awareness of being. And that's what's most important." And I just love that advice he gave to this guy. It was a gentle, go out and get a partner, get a job, get a life, get a
Right.
life, and be present at the same time. Doing nothing is not necessarily going to bring you something. Nothing was
Right.
an outcome of Eckhart's experience. So even in isolation, you can sit in being, but you can also do something. If there's a project you've been waiting to do for a long time, or create something or build something, I mean, what a great opportunity, right? So don't just do nothing because you think that'll get you something.
Oh, that's a
Yeah.
funny phrase. Do nothing because it'll get you something. Yeah. Well, and even meditating, someone looks at someone who's meditating and says, "Well, you're not doing anything when you're meditating." And I I've followed Eckhart's teachings a bit, and kind of listened to him and gone into some of the spaces he talks about. And even in the doing nothing that he talks about, you are doing something, right? There's this presence that you're becoming aware of, or that's arising. Or even when we teach meditation, you are doing something. It's just you're stepping into a different way to perceive the world. It's through that lens of being, and it's starting to recognize, well, what is the way that being exists or expresses, or kind of interplays in you, through you, and into the world. And while it's nothing in the sense of what we think of, building something physically, manipulating the physical world, there is certainly something to it, but it is a funny play on words,
Yeah.
doing nothing.
I did that. I did the nothing for a while. I traveled around the world and did the nothing for a minute there for a couple of years.
Right.
It was a
And
good,
yet, what were you doing? You were gaining all of these experiences that you're
yeah,
drawing on now. So of course
that's
you were
right.
developing something. I think that we can get into this kind of circular mind play when we kind of look at it through that lens of doing nothing. Um, I like a question a good friend of mine asked a number of years ago about going inward and meditating. And he said, can you go in and sit down and meditate for no particular reason? So
Mhm.
it's not that you're not doing nothing, because a lot of people are meditating, and in their mind, they might be telling themselves, well, I'm going to do nothing, but they have a reason behind it. Well, because I'm going to improve myself. Well, because I want to get this in life. Well, because I want to do that. And it's not that you have to do nothing. It's that, can you step out of all of the conditioned, programmed reasons that are driving you to get to that deeper drive, that it's not really a drive, that arises in you, that when you do that thing, or when you focus your energy in that way, you feel fulfilled, you feel accomplished,
Yeah.
you don't feel like you're chasing something, you feel like you're creating something. And those two very different ways of being.
Or you can just meditate because girls like it. He's sensitive.
That's David's.
Yeah. All my Instagram pictures, just me, just like,
Yeah.
uh, I love when I get calls from from companies and be like, come teach our company meditation so they could be more productive. Yes, get back on that treadmill, be more productive so I could squeeze a nickel out of you. Help them, David. It's like, well, they're miserable because they work from you. So I'm going to help them unwind that and slowly disappear out the back door. They never call me back. I don't know why.
Uh, yeah, that's kind of a funny one. I think there are two very different maybe aspects of meditating. There is the part of it where it's stress reduction, and it helps you to find a place where you feel better, and you maybe will become more productive when you are less stressed and you feel better and you're clearer minded. And then there's kind of the spiritual pursuit side, which is one where you are kind of changing maybe who you are and changing what you want, or re-evaluating what you're about and what you want in life. And that process doesn't necessarily create more productivity. It kind of creates a time of change where things are in flux and things are kind of up and down. And it's not all about being more productive, at least not in the short term. I think you become more aligned in the long term, and you kind of measure productivity a little differently. Um, it's not
Maybe,
about output, it's about the input side
yeah,
of it when you shift in that way.
maybe we should make a meditation helmet where you just put it on and it meditates for you. And then you just like, oh, I'm done. Like those app things you put on your
Send
apps, and
certain waves, yeah, brain
yeah,
waves, or
they have things like that, I guess,
they
already.
do.
Yeah, and that'll calm you down. I think that's fine. It won't get you to the deepest place inside yourself, or maybe help you find all your answers. But I'm not against anything that helps you feel better.
No, I think the reason none of those things can get us to some of those deeper places is the whole journey to finding your answers is about kind of asking the right question, and none of those things are going to ask the right question for you. You have to find that for yourself. So
Yeah, absolutely. So if you've been in quarantine avoiding that, sit your tuchus down and start asking the right questions, is what Cody's trying to tell you. So, little psychic weather here. Sometimes when I like to look at the planet, on an energetic level, especially during this pandemic, you can see like huge clouds of fear, huge
right,
clouds of anxiety, huge clouds of anger, storms of fighting, and just all of this intense,
catastrophizing and
yeah, energy. And I think it's important that you recognize that you might be more aware of that than you think, but maybe you only realize it when you like turn on the news and you're like, ah, but it's actually always all there.
yeah,
And even with the news turned off, even isolated in your house, like that energy affects us, that collective energy in the species that says something is wrong, be afraid or hide, or you should be anxious. And learning how not to just become that and just join that crowd, that mob of energy, and really have your own ideas, get your own answers. Uh, that doesn't mean you don't protect yourself, but you don't do it by just kind of unconsciously going with the herd. I think that is something that will keep you sane. So I literally will see like waves of color in the ethers above me. Sometimes I'll like peek up and go, "Ooh, that's a big wave of anxiety in this neighborhood." I don't know. I'll just see things like that sometime. Uh, so then I'll just run. Just kidding.
hide under a rock.
Police officer, there is a wave of invisible anxiety above your head. You can't see it, but I can. Why are you taking me away?
But that is certainly part of the concept we teach in meditating, is finding your own space, which basically boils down to kind of separating from that group energy, and finding kind of your own center and your own grounding and balance and connecting with your own energy, which ultimately feels good. I mean, that's the thing that feels good when you're connected in that way. And it's kind of funny because sometimes it can feel energetic or almost exciting to get caught up in some of those waves that are basically a little bit fear, a little bit hysteria, and a little bit of I'm doing something, I'm solving. Um, and it's great to get out in the world and do what we can do. But when you're just sitting in those waves and you can't sleep and you can't like maintain balance with your body, and then that can be really disruptive to your own
Yeah.
health and connection.
Sometimes I just knock on my neighbor's door and I scream, "We're all screwed," and I just run away. And that's kind of been helping me release stress.
Yeah, that's a good way.
If you challenge for everyone listening, see if you can meditate for an hour a day. I know that might seem a lot, but sit for an hour a day. The bigger the energy out there, the more you need your space, the more you need to be resilient, the more you need to be able to handle the chaos of people's fear and anxiety. So the way you used to meditate might not be enough anymore. You might have to take it up a notch, or maybe you have to do more yoga or exercise or therapy or whatever it happens to be for you. So take it up a notch. If you're doing the same thing you were doing to deal with an energy that's 5 times bigger, it might not work anymore. So if you're feeling low or heavy or stuck, you might have to put in more time into your practice. And what better time than when you're at home? So set up a meditation space if you don't have one. Focus on building a little bubble for yourself that you can sit in and really shift your energy. And then by the time you do that and you're like, wow, I really got it, they're going to lift the
Right.
all the social distancing guidelines, and you'll be like, God damn it, I just found some peace. And then your next challenge will be to go outside and find it outside amongst
Back in the
everybody
world. Yeah.
being in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess we are in our own personal caves, right? Like that's the picture of finding yourself is to go off and meditate in the cave for however long. And it's like, well, here it is.
I've been growing caveman levels of chest hair.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I had to shave my own head last week. I did. I was like, what am I going to do? I have to shave my
Yeah,
own head.
true.
Reminded
I
me of
know.
what I used to do when I lived in a few different
India.
places.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
India,
have that up.
sometimes I'd shave my head, but I would also go to the barber shop because it's like a
Oh.
dollar and they would like work on you for like 40 minutes and it was amazing. So I would also shave my head. Yeah, on occasion.
Yeah.
So get to work,
Yeah. So
everybody.
meditating, and frequency. I mean, I'm with you, David. Meditate for an hour. Frequency is just as important, maybe more important. So start to carve out a time, maybe a couple times a day. So even if you
Yeah.
can only sit for 15, 20 minutes, you do that twice a day, and pretty soon you'll find yourself sitting for a half hour, and then pretty soon an hour. And
Yeah.
pretty soon you won't, may not want to get up.
That's
Uh,
right. Like I have meditation school where I teach live, and people have been really showing up more than ever, which has been great. Just like really showing up and doing the work. And so I've been happy to see the progress that so many of my students have been making. It's been really, really nice. And also on Insight Timer, I see a lot of people showing up and doing the work. Um, I, I'm getting more people finishing like my like 30-day courses. Like I see them
mm,
finishing and then messaging me more than they used to. So that's been pretty cool. Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, I've been seeing that more people kind of showing up, being a little more, I hate to use the word serious, but serious about it. Like it's more become more important to really sit down and work with going inward and kind of releasing and finding that balance. And I've been seeing it, it's a little more challenging now to do that for some because we are pulled in many directions, not in necessarily a productive way, but just into the different dramas and things that are going on. So I've had to work a little bit more to help people kind of find their way back to equilibrium, because everything's a little bit sideways right now. But it certainly makes a big difference when they do, when they can get back to that center. And so many people, when they do get back to that center, what I keep hearing from people is they're suddenly seeing just what an opportunity we have to kind of change or remake a part of ourselves and ultimately our world. And that gets lost in the media dramatization. It's not the opportunity that's being explored, it's the fear.
It's like,
um,
hey, what did you do for 6 weeks in quarantine? I watched Tiger King twice.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's
Once is enough, is all I'm
once is
saying.
enough. Yeah. No, so it is. It's great to be able to find our uh, inner alignment, because then we do see the opportunity, and seeing the opportunity in something does not negate the validity of the crisis.
Of course.
Because there's every single change has both the side where things are kind of disrupted, it has its disruption, and then it has the new emergence and of something hopefully greater or better, and that's the opportunity. And it's so easy to miss that side of it.
It is. It is. So what Cody's saying is put your money into the stock market.
I'm not saying
That's what he told you to do that.
not that kind of
We'll check
opportunity.
back in 5 years and see how you did.
Yeah, I want to cut
Of
5 years,
what?
a percentage of how
There won't be
we
anything.
did.
No, I'm kidding.
There won't be anything left. Oh my
No, very
goodness, dude.
much could be very much the opposite. I have, all right, we got to close it up in a moment here, but
Yes.
sometimes I'll watch the financial news and I have seen every single perspective on the financial news. We're going to have a V-shaped recovery. It goes down, right back up. It's going to be a U. We're going into a Great Depression. This thing is going
Right.
down like the Titanic. I've heard very smart people from big banks and trading hedge funds and everybody across the board say completely different things, and that was fascinating to me.
I've had that same experience, and my conclusion is nobody knows what's going to happen. That is what that means. It means nobody has a clue.
Yeah, nobody, but
And one of them's going to be right, obviously, because all the bases are covered, but nobody actually knows. That's the funny thing.
that's right. Although, when there was a financial collapse in 2008, if you were able to have some money to invest, it was generally a good opportunity. So there's always opportunity in destruction. There's always opportunity in these intense moments on the planet, whether they're internal or external. And it doesn't make you a bad person to use whatever you have in front of you to help you grow and shift. And then maybe you're able to help other people better as well. I think some people are staying small because they feel guilty or bad, but that's not going to end up helping anybody. Usually, the most disruptive technologies and changes come out of these really intense times on the planet. So you get to decide, am I going to be part of that, or am I just going to sit here and wait and be afraid? And I think the uh, the disruptive part, growing part, is much more attractive.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
And
cool.
so with
I don't know. We
that,
rambled a lot. Did we get to what we wanted to get to?
oh yes, basically, me and Cody wanted to use this whole episode to say, sit your tuchus down and meditate more than you're meditating. Doesn't matter what style or technique. There's thousands of free, millions of free hours probably at this point of meditations online. And we've shared our favorite
Yes.
resources many times, other than our own stuff. But like Insight Timer, I think has a lot of really good content. Um, One of my favorite books, The Untethered Soul, lovely. If you've never read it, obviously The Power of Now, beautiful book. Uh, get on there and
Yeah.
find something that works for you.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to explore, to try some things. Yeah, not
And,
everything works right away, or not everything works for everybody. But there's so many resources now. It's amazing.
and I'm going to give out Cody's phone number here. It's going to put it right
Just
up
real
to the
quick, just flash
screen.
it. Yeah.
If you have any questions, just call him. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening to the Energy Matters podcast. We hope that you stay super safe and grounded in this time on the planet. And if you're not on our email list and you want to get on it, it's energymattersacademy.com. We wish you all the best, and we will see you next time. Take care.
Yeah, stay safe, stay sane, and take up meditating.
Yeah.
See you soon.